Hi everyone, this is Stylistic's first beginner tutorial on stylized decorative illustration. There will be a step-by-step walkthrough on drawing basic composition, building upon the core theory that was shown in the previous Instagram posts. We are going to create a free composition with a 3-point layout, and this process will be broken into 5 steps. The materials you need for this are a watercolor sketchbook or paper, some pencils, an eraser, and a ruler. So get your things ready and let's get started. Before we begin anything else, we have to set up the frame of our composition. First, draw a large enough rectangular frame on your paper. You can actually be flexible with the exact measurements of this frame, but I recommend that it be big enough to fit an A4 size so that your painting process, especially for the little details, will be easier later. For reference, the rectangle I drew here is 18 by 24 centimeters. Step 1. Draw the 3 elements of the composition and arrange their positions and sizes in a way that is harmonious within the frame. For this video, since it's our first tutorial, we're going to use only the shapes of squares and rectangles to keep it simple and easy in drawing composition. There will be a main element, which is the primary focus, a secondary element, and a tertiary element. You can use the rule of thirds and divide the frame into 3 equal rows and columns. This will create 4 visual focus points that will help you arrange the elements, but note that this is a free composition, so it's not a strict rule and there can be certain exceptions. The most important thing is that you have 3 elements where the first element is clearly the biggest, the second element is clearly smaller than the first, and the third element is clearly the smallest. So you have the freedom to adjust based on your own judgment on how to ensure compositional harmony. This will definitely require some slight changes as you are drawing. You may have to erase or redraw the lines along the way, which is totally normal. Step 2. Draw the inner shape and outer shapes for each of the elements. Here's where it gets a bit complicated as the shapes start to intersect each other, which results in more and more smaller areas that create a layering effect. For the inner shapes, the main element, the big rectangle, will have another smaller rectangle within it, and the secondary element, the square, will have an inner square. The third and smallest element won't have an inner shape, otherwise it would be overly detailed and draw attention away from the other elements when it's only supposed to be a supporting piece. There's also a reason why the inner shapes may not be drawn at the center of the element. It's so that the element's outer shapes can easily cross over into each other's inner shapes. Now listen carefully. The secondary element's outer shape will intersect the main element's inner shape, but the main element's outer shape will only intersect the secondary element and not its inner shape. The main and secondary elements are now linked by the intersection created by their outer shapes crossing over each other. We now have a layering effect. Step 3. Draw the supporting corner shapes for all 3 elements. This further adds another layer to the elements, and the main element will now have the most layers, while the third element will have the least. Step 4. Draw the middle linking piece that intersects and connects all 3 elements with each other. This middle piece is bigger than and envelops the smaller intersection between the main and secondary element. An important thing to keep in mind is to not let any of the intersecting areas, basically these new little squares and rectangles, be too small. Space them out evenly when you are drawing the lines so that it'll be easier for you to paint them later. Now, you'll notice some areas in this composition have a bit of blank space to be filled, like the bottom left corner or the upper middle area, which leads us to step 5. Draw the additional supporting elements if needed or there's available space. We can have 2 intersecting rectangles below here that also link to the secondary element. We can have another rectangle above that intersects with the main element. The 3-point element layout has achieved spatial harmony in composition with a clear main element, a secondary element, and a tertiary element, along with a middle linking element that connects and intersects the 3 together. The layering effect is created through the many shapes and forms that are drawn inside and enveloping outside the element, crossing over with other elements as well to make even more intricate and complex layers. Right now, it may look quite convoluted, but for the next video, the process of numbering is introduced to help you organize and navigate the many layers and shapes as you move from drawing composition to coloring the composition. So, stay tuned and see you next time!